I want people to understand this ordeal. It's taken a toll on both of us.
Casey Anthony's parents respond after 15 years of allegations.
I've gotten blamed for something I didn't do, and it tears me up inside.
This can change our life. This is serious.
This is their final response.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.
To get the Crime Writers on After Show right now, go to patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, it's America's most famous haunted house. What do you know about the grisly murders around the Amityville Horror? We'll look at the new podcast series, Very Scary People. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, I'm hanging tough, Rebecca.
Yes, also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of Dead on Deadline, Laura Bricker. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Rebecca.
How are you feeling, Laura?
Not so hot, but I'm here. So I have COVID. So
Yes.
I think, out of all of us who actually, Kevin, have you had COVID?
No, I have not.
I have not.
Oh, so we're 50-50 now because
We're
Toby
50-50,
and I,
yeah.
we're 50-50. So yeah, I thought I had allergies earlier in the week and then symptoms progressed and tested negative one day, positive the next. So I have been binging trashy TV with my cats all week.
Yeah.
So here I am.
Well, we're glad that your symptoms aren't very serious.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you sound good, and
You
so
sound
we're happy to
great.
have you, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And also with us is our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy, host of the Strange Arrivals podcast, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Toby Ball. Hello, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca. I'm very excited to talk today about your people.
My people, my people from Long
Yeah,
Island.
exactly.
I am so excited to talk about my people from my native country of Long Island as well. Before we do that, Kevin Flynn, this obviously is our Monday podcast drop. What is coming up? And our next podcast drop this coming Thursday.
Well, on Thursday, we're going to be talking about Season 2 of Connie Walker's podcast, Stolen. It is Stolen, Surviving St. Michael's.
Yes. Well, I'm looking forward to that discussion. There's one thing that I want to mention before we start our conversation, this podcast. Last week, we promoted a little bit of an event that we are doing this coming weekend. I'd like to promote it again.
Because now we have details?
Well, we had the details last time, too. We just forgot to say them. So this Saturday, June 4th, in the charming AF town of Exeter, New Hampshire, at 7 p.m. at Water Street Bookstore, a fantastic independent bookstore in Exeter, New Hampshire, Laura Bricker's hometown. I will be interviewing author Elon Green about his incredible true crime book, Last Call, which, full disclosure, I just finished today. And Kevin, will you not acknowledge I have been talking to you about it nonstop since I started reading it? It is fan-freaking-tastic.
Yeah, well, Toby's been raving about it ever since it came out.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
You can do your
Maybe a year
homework
now.
listening to the deep dive.
Listen to the deep dive. Listen to or read the book. It is about a serial killer prowling New York's gay piano bar scene in the early 1990s. It is fan-freaking-tastic. So Elon Green is going to be at Water Street Bookstore in Exeter, New Hampshire at 7 p.m. And Laura Bricker, if she is feeling better, has committed to hanging out with me for a little bit after the event. We're going to, I think, maybe bring a couple of bottles of wine, and if any CWO fans come, hang out with them for a few minutes afterwards, right?
That is the plan.
That's
I
the
will
plan.
be there.
I may be there too.
Yay!
Oh, Toby Ball. Yay. And Kevin's going to be umpiring.
Yeah, if it rains, then I will be there.
If it rains, Laura, our plan to have drinks beforehand on a patio is screwed. But
it's screwed after we've reserved the whole patio. Oh, man. Okay.
Why didn't we
I'll
reserve
pull
inside seats? But we'll do our best.
Because they were all gone because it's also a graduation weekend. So, yeah, it's a busy weekend.
All right. Well, we hope to see any Crime Writer fans who can show up. That would be wonderful. I'll bring a couple bottles of rosé, and we will chat, and you get to meet author Elon Green, who, by the way, is way smarter than all of us put together. So that is what's happening. No offense, Toby. So that is what is happening this coming Saturday, June 4th.
Where did that come
All
from?
right. I don't know, but would you not agree that he's probably smarter than all four of us? I think he probably is. Anyway, all right. So I think we should go ahead and get started with the incredibly intelligent and intellectual conversation we're going to be having about the podcast this week. Should we get going?
All right, do it.
I'm going to go ahead and drop that first clip right now.
A man makes a 911 call to the Suffolk County Police Department. Something's gone horribly wrong in Amityville. The man is panicked. He sounds like he's seen a ghost.
Before it was known on the big screen as a house of horror, the Dutch Colonial at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, Long Island, belonged to the family of Ron DeFeo. In November of 1974, Ron Jr. found his parents and 4 siblings shot to death in their beds.
This was a multiple murder, 6 bodies, 6 victims.
I had never seen anything this gruesome. I couldn't sleep for months.
Though there were allegations of domestic violence and ties to organized crime, police focused on Ron Jr. His trial captivated the community, but his grisly crimes would be overshadowed by the new homeowners' claims that the house was possessed.
And they're claiming that they were terrified by all kinds of things in there, eerie shapes and noises and strange feelings.
The new podcast, Very Scary People from HLN, revisits the DeFeo murders, the crime which was the prologue to the Amityville Horror. Narrated by Donnie Wahlberg, the series explores the DeFeo family history, theories of the crime, and the supernatural legacy of the crime scene. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about plot points from Very Scary People, so if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes, or never read any ever coverage of the Amityville Horror case, which has been out for like 40 plus years, to go to the estimated time code in our show notes to hear our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. Get out. So, Toby, your first note is very funny. Your first note that you sent me was, this podcast is ripe for a drinking game. What drinking game would you, in fact, play along with this podcast?
They do, or I should say Donnie, just does the same things again and again and again. So somebody will say something, he'll be like, you heard that right, and then repeat what they said. Or he gives the address of the house, like, constantly.
112 Ocean Avenue?
112 Ocean Avenue, again and again and again. I don't know the number of times he had to explain that Ron Jr. was also called Butch.
Yes.
So anyway, there's enough of these things where you could tie a pretty good buzz on every week.
Kevin, what do you think of Donnie Wahlberg as the host of this podcast? After you tell me what you think, I will tell you what I think of Donnie Wahlberg as the host of this podcast.
Okay, well, look, my expectations were pretty low, having Donnie Wahlberg as the host and having this produced by HLN. Remember, they were the producers of Down the Hill, the Delphi murders, and we thought that was pretty rudimentary.
Wait, which one was that?
That was the one with the 2 girls and the railroad.
Oh. Didn't they have that horrible tape they kept playing over and over again?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Could never understand.
Yes.
So, that said, like, this is pretty straightforward with lots of sound, and they do a decent job recounting a murder that we didn't know much about. Not every podcast needs to be hosted by a journalist who's going to bring, like, a first-person perspective or point of view. This is squarely in a category where, like, Donnie Wahlberg knows his role. He's the narrator, and he stays in his lane, right? I wanted to really make fun of him, but I really can't. I actually kind of liked, I thought it was cute when he got around introducing himself.
I'm your host, Donnie Wahlberg. Yep, I'm the guy from New Kids on the Block. I'm also an actor and a producer. You might also know me from the Saw series about the Jigsaw Killer or The Sixth Sense.
Shit.
I know him from the hamburger place.
Wahlburgers.
One thing you said was just really funny to me right now. Well, only me, maybe. Murders that we don't know a lot about. I know everything about these murders.
Oh,
Everything. Like the Amy Fisher case, like the Joel Rifkin case, like the Long Island serial killer case. The Amityville Horror case especially is woven into the fabric of my childhood. The Amityville Horror House was about 12...
What kind of fucking childhood did you have?
I'm sorry. The Amityville Horror House was about 12 minutes from where I grew up, door to door. We used to drive there as a teenager, growing up. Like, that's a thing. Like, people would visit and would be like, do you want to go see where the Amityville Horror House was? Like, it's a few towns over from where I lived. It's on my train line. Amityville, Merrick, it went through all the towns on the South Shore of Long Island, including my hometown of Freeport, Long Island. The DeFeo family, their connections, their car dealership connections. It was just a very, very, very familiar story. We all followed the renovations that took place at 112 Ocean Avenue when they painted the house yellow, when they painted the house pink, when they changed the windows. So it's funny to me.
I would say that not everybody has that level
of
detail in that kind of crime.
So for me entering this
Laura,
podcast...
did you know that they changed the windows?
No, but me entering this podcast was a very different experience than the two of you.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I loved Donnie Wahlberg doing this podcast because I'm hearing Donnie Wahlberg talking about a story that it's like he's telling me a story that I know. Think about
just
that.
in a lower register.
A much lower register. How does he even sing anymore? He must be lip syncing, right? He must be.
He's eating the microphone. It's getting really in there, yeah.
What do you think of Donnie's presence here, Laura Bricker?
Well, I didn't know anything about this case. And I'd like to point out, like Kevin was saying, you also went to Class Action Park, Rebecca.
Yes.
There's a lot that happened in the childhood of Rebecca. But yeah, so I knew of it more as the horror movie thing, like the Amityville Horror House. I didn't actually, know any details of the murder before this podcast. So Donnie Wahlberg, I just thought of him as sort of a place filler here. I was like, oh, it's Donnie Wahlberg. Okay. I mean, I felt like it was he didn't add that much excitement for me personally to the narration style of this podcast. Quite honestly, I don't know if I would have even known it was him if he didn't introduce himself, because it was competent. It was done kind of overall, everything was there. The people were there. There was interviews, the details, but there just wasn't that much pizzazz. For me anyway, in the delivery of this podcast, aside from Toby's drinking game.
I was surprised him being from Boston. It was it was murder.
So, Toby, one of the things that struck me was at the beginning of the podcast, they have a bunch of people saying that this Amityville was this bucolic place in the early 1970s. I can't speak to whether or not it was bucolic in the early 1970s. It was not bucolic in the 80s when I was growing up. However, they said it was not the kind of place where a mass murder would take place. And I found myself thinking, where the fuck is the kind of place where a mass murder of a family would take place, right?
Yeah, it was weird. They do at the beginning kind of set up this thing where it's Amityville, and even their house, I think they call it a stately house. And you wouldn't expect a family to be murdered there. And they also kind of contrast that with the city. And I can't remember who it is, whether it was a reporter or a detective or something, but they say that he grew up in Brooklyn where he witnessed burglaries and murders. And I was like, wait, what? Can that be true?
He's no snitch.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought the whole thing was kind of weird. It does kind of play into that. It couldn't happen here. It's these, nice white folks. You wouldn't see them mass murdering each other.
With a pool.
They had a very nice pool. They backed up to the canal.
Pool. Yeah.
So why would they murder each other?
He would pray in his underwear to the statues out front.
Oh my! That is such a Long Island detail. It is such a Long Island detail.
Well, that's the other thing they do at the beginning is they're talking about how they were totally normal and just you wouldn't have expected it, just a normal family, which I think is to set up this reveal. Everything wasn't as good as it seemed. It's a lot of this stuff was playing out in public, him walking out in his underwear to pray to statues that he'd put up on his lawn. And the fact that kids wouldn't have friends come over because their dad was so volatile. I don't know. It was kind of weird. Like they spent a lot of time on it, and then it turned out to be BS.
I would like to hear Keith Morrison narrate about the Amityville. I can't even say the Amityville. How do you say it?
Amityville.
Like he would bring kind of a spooky Halloween tone to it.
Potentially. I mean, I did love the description.
Flies and the devil.
I did love
punching the nun in the head.
I did love, by the way, the opening of the first episode has this crazy disclaimer at the beginning of it where it says,
just a heads up before we begin, this episode contains references to ghosts, demons, and a grisly mass murder. Listen with care.
You know what's actually disturbing is the description of brains.
Yes.
Like on the floor.
They got it in the neck and the face. The blood and the brain matter and other bodily matter was all over the beds, the walls, etc.
There was very little discussions
Dead
of
kittens,
ghosts and demons, but the actual description of the disgusting graphic crime scene, perhaps more disturbing than the descriptions of imaginary ghosts and demons that they never actually really talk about in the first episode. One thing that I will say, and I'll just say it, like the DeFeos, their giant oil portraits of the whole family, like going up the stairs, the statuary on the front lawn.
Kind of gauche.
Nobody in this neighborhood didn't know this family was mobbed up. And nobody in this neighborhood thought this family was just a regular all-American family where there was nothing weird going on. I guarantee it, because I grew up with families like this in my neighborhood, and everyone knew what was going on with families like this. Everyone.
Is that why the neighbors later said, yeah, we did hear shots,
Yes.
but we didn't want to say anything? Yeah.
Exactly.
Downloading an app can be the start of a teen learning a new skill, discovering a community, or igniting their creativity. But parents should have a say in which apps are right for their teens. That's why Instagram wants to work with Congress to require parental approval wherever teens under 16 download apps. Learn more at instagram.com/parental approval.
I never did anything to harm my daughter or my granddaughter.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's Parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.
All right, Kevin, so should we do the business section right now?
I think now would be a good time to do the business section.
I'm going to drop that music now. Do you hear it?
I hear it, yes.
No, you don't, because I'll drop it later.
Oh, you son of a...
I do it in the post-recording, production part.
You know, you really got to stop pulling the curtain back.
Listen, people like it when I do
some
that.
magic, please.
Talk about the business.
All right, the business is right now on Patreon. You can listen to the Crime Writers on After Show. This week, we're going to be talking about, hey, summer is here officially. I mean, is that officially?
No,
what do you say?
Not officially, but it is the
unofficial start of summer.
Yes, as of today.
Summer, right, okay.
Memorial Day, right, is the unofficial start of summer.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of our picks for things that we're looking forward to either watching or reading or listening to coming up this summer. Maybe while we have our toes in the sand someplace here.
I have recommendations.
Cold Atlantic Ocean, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay.
I'll give you my book recommendations.
Also, you can listen to, among the other exclusive podcasts, the latest Leave It to Bricker, in which Laura and her friends cannot get over their obsession with this shady-ass spa in their quaint AF town of Exeter, New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on with Laura, right? But think about it. This past year, she has done the boobs on the bar episode. This is the second time she's going to look at this shady spa stuff that we have to bleep the name out of it and everything.
The bleep spa.
You remember she went to Florida and was like, bought a vibrator. What life is Laura Bricker living right now?
Don't know.
But I don't want to give away the ending.
Okay.
But Laura is now convinced she and a friend need to go and get a couples massage and hope for the worst. Or the best. I don't know. It depends.
I mean, the worst might be the best ending that I could receive.
Yes.
Only if it's happy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to join us on Patreon, just go to patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Just like it said at the beginning of this podcast episode, you can get nearly, I think we're almost 300 episodes.
Yes.
Of exclusive stuff, including Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast and Married with Podcast. And don't forget to sign up for free for our Crime Writers On newsletter. It'll be out on Thursday. You'll get to see all the special behind-the-scenes stuff and a special announcement coming from Toby Ball on Thursday.
Ooh.
Plus, see the Cat of the Week and all this other crap. Who knows? It's
cool
free.
merch.
Go to crimewriterson.com and sign up for nothing.
Yeah. So, Kevin, does thus end the business section?
Yeah, thus ends the business section. It was a horror, an Amityville horror.
It was. All right, so Toby, you actually also sent me some notes about the production style of this podcast. What would you like to say about that?
They do this weird thing with sound bites where some of the sound bites are really, really short and aren't very illuminating about anything. And some of them are really short, but they take quite a while to set them up, and then they repeat what the person said in the sound bite right afterwards. So they'll be like, this is Sally who knew the kids when they were growing up in elementary school, and she remembers them as being really nice kids, and although she was intimidated by the dad a little bit, and she was at the funeral and then they'll cut to her and she'll be like, the kids were in white coffins. You heard that right. The kids were in white coffins. The adults were in brown coffins, but the kids were in white coffins. It's like, so what? What does that mean? It was just kind of weird. It's like they did these interviews and then they felt like they wanted to use something from them just to show how many people they talked to. So they just stick these like weird little like 1 or 2 sentence quotes sort of again and again. And I couldn't figure out like what we're supposed to get out of them.
Well, I'm going to say that, that the success or failure of this podcast would depend on the writing and the news production value. And I'll say, the first episode, like they really, try to go in full bore on conveying the drama of the murders, and it's overdone a little bit. Donnie Wahlberg is just going to be the narrator, and he's only going to be as good as what they give him, right? And how they produce the stuff around him. And in a way, it's not very different than what Whitney Cummings had to do with Boinga Boinga. She injected a little more humor in it, although I don't think we appreciated it all that much. Anyway, as far as the writing goes, I think certainly the first 2 episodes are kind of the weakest. Toby's right. There was a lot of repeating about, there were 4 children, and that, we already know who is in the family. Thank you, and also they gave Donnie a lot of lists.
Like what?
Like he'd say, like,
folks in Amityville knew they were connected to the mob.
You heard right. He said the DeFeos were connected to the mob, the mafia, organized crime.
It was like, he's going to go to jail. The Pokey, the Slammer, the Big House, the Iron Bar Hotel.
I loved it. I don't know. I'm sorry. I loved it. I think my taste is just degrading as I get older. There's something about this that I found really trashy and charming. Laura Bricker, Kevin just said he thought the first 2 episodes were like not as good. When I started listening to this, I had like my expectations were set at like 0. And I started listening to it and I was like, why do I like this? What is the matter with me? I mean, it was gross, right? And the details were grisly.
Yeah.
But there were also some, like, granted, I know a lot about the story, but I also found myself hearing things that made me curious again, like the detail with the dog, for instance. What did you just think about the way the sort of case itself was laid out? Like, before they sort of say that the police ended up arresting Ron/Butch, which, by the way, I know that he's known in the press and the media as Ron Jr., but if they're going to keep saying he's Butch, they should just call him Butch the whole time or Ron Jr. the whole time. That was very confusing.
The people they interviewed kept going back and forth.
Right. True.
So
True.
Yeah.
I felt like they kind of drew it out a little bit too much for me in the leading up to the big reveal, because it was like, for me, the more interesting episodes were at the end when there was like sort of this aftermath and how this became this sort of folklore sort of mecca for people that wanted to go see the creepy house and sneak up. But, like they kind of, the lead up to exposing who the murderer actually was, for me, it was almost kind of just distracting because it was just so slow. I was like, okay, we get it. Like, one family member's alive, the dog's in the shed, something's kind of fishy here. But it was very methodical. It was very complete. Like I said, you and I were talking about this the other day. I said, this is like a very competent podcast. It was easy to listen to. There was nothing really offensive about, it didn't blow me away, but, I wish they had perhaps, in the narrative sort of structure kind of sped that part up a little bit more, because for me, the more interesting parts of this happened towards the end when we had the trial and then sort of the aftermath of this.
Yeah. Kevin, I've always thought the dog being outside of the shed, always thought this.
Yeah.
Indicated that either it wasn't Ron DeFeo Jr. or that he did not work alone. Because why the hell would Ron DeFeo Jr. need to put his own dog outside in order to kill his own family?
Well, they explained that the dog did not like Ron Jr. And I think actually that shows to me that he did do it.
Who explained that?
Donnie did.
Donnie did.
Donnie said, well, it's a smart dog or something like that. This is, again, another example of sort of the Hounds of the Baskerville, the dog, or the dog that doesn't bark. The dog would have to go out if somebody assumed the dog was going to attack. But the act of putting the dog out without the dog attacking shows that the dog knew the person who put him out
Why
there.
not just kill the dog?
Why not just kill the dog? I don't know. You're already going to kill 6 people. Why not also shoot the dog? It's a great question.
Okay.
It's a horrible question.
Well, let's just talk about the part of the story that everybody knows about the story, right? Which is the Amityville Horror part of the story, right?
Yeah.
The only reason people know about these murders at all are because of what happened after, which was that this family moved into the house, lived there for a couple of weeks, fled the house, claiming that the house was haunted. Black ooze was coming out of the walls, flies everywhere, and they fled the house and left all their stuff behind.
Get out.
What do we think of the fact?
Carol Ann!
That's Poltergeist. That is not this.
No, that's the Steven Spielberg version of this. Come on.
That's true. So what do we think of the fact that the New York major market television stations dealt with this claim by doing a seance on camera, and that was the way they decided to report this story, was by bringing in psychics and mediums and reporters and having that be the way that they decided to do this story on the television news station.
Oh my God. It's like Geraldo. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I mean, I just thought it was freaking bonkers, but that was one of the parts I just loved. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this right now.
Alberta, the psychic, started screaming. She was panicked.
It's upstairs in the second bedroom, in the second floor bedroom. I don't know what it was. And it's moving around. And she ran out of the room screaming.
Then the other psychic, Mary, bolted from the dining room table and ran out to the front lawn, vomiting.
It just, it reminded me, it's like, so I listened to this, and then today, and during my period of COVID convalescence, I've been binging the Workin' Mom show on Netflix, and they just stayed in a haunted house on a ladies' weekend, and all I could think of was and they had all these gimmicks thrown into the thing, and I'm like, it just kind of reminded me of this. I mean, it was like the black ooze. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really? Oh my gosh. But wouldn't it have been exciting if they had seen something? Oh my goodness.
Well, you have the one journalist person saying, how could they have known it would turn into this big phenomenon? Why would they make this up, right? And then you have the guy who I love, and I remember him growing up being on TV. And she's saying the first medium, the minute she walked in, this is the most evil place I've ever seen. And then he's like, yeah, I was there. I didn't see anything.
I was there prepared to report what I saw and to experience anything unusual that might have happened. All I experienced was a slight chill behind the ear. Could have been anything. It was a cold March night. Door could have been open, a window open.
What does our resident cynic think of all this? Strange Arrival season 7 coming up
I've really
here.
turned around on this whole thing. It's just, for me, actually, this part was just reminiscent of growing up and having those stations on cable, like WPIX, and I don't know if this is Channel 5 or Channel 7 or whatever, but it just was like Bob McAllister and Wonderama and like all these things that these
Channel 11
that these stations did to like compete with each other in the New York market. So that seems totally in keeping with that kind of competition for viewers. At the same time, just being completely freaking nuts. Like, can you imagine like putting on WMUR and they're like doing a seance up in,
If I was still on, they would.
Kevin,
I would do it.
Kevin, you would do that in Chronicle 100%.
I would, but I would keep looking over at the, into the camera with my eye, like rolling my eye a little bit. Sean McDonald would know exactly what I'm talking about. I would love to say we would have Janet Varney come on and she'd be dressed like her character from Fortune Rookie and she could be doing the seance and we could be like, "Oh, Romeo, I'm calling you." It's nuts. It's nuts. It's nuts.
What do we think about the first reporter who was ever on the scene of this whole thing who said he went home and immediately his little kitten died in his hands?
The actual fuck, man.
I petted her about 3 times, I think. I just pet like that. And all of a sudden she looks at me and goes, "Ah!" She makes a little noise like this. "Ah!" Her head goes over and she died in my hands.
That doesn't sound to me like something possessed happened. It sounds to me like he killed his fucking cat. Why would a little kitten die in your hands for no
it's
reason?
this theory that
I didn't buy that.
Evil spirit followed him home and then killed his kitten as he pet him, and like
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
and like
that.
why didn't they follow everybody
right?
else home? Like why was it that guy? Why did that guy get chosen?
Because he's special.
It's like when I covered a story on Scientology and I was like a brand new reporter and the guy was like warning me. He said, "The Scientologist will come for you now." And I was
that's
driving
true.
home.
That actually
I was
is true.
driving home in my
Yeah.
car, like engine died. And I was like, "Oh my God, they've already found me."
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But I just had a shitty car because I was like just out of college.
But the Scientologist will write you emails and complain.
Yeah, say something about Amanda
They did kill
Knox.
somebody's cat. They did kill
Jesus.
somebody's. They killed some. Yeah.
Allegedly. I think we should probably
Allegedly.
throw in there.
Allegedly. They allegedly. No, that cat thing was in the news.
More than 75% of parents agree teens under 16 shouldn't be able to download apps from app stores without parental permission. Instagram wants to work with Congress to pass federal legislation that gets it done. Learn more at instagram.com/parental approval.
I never did anything to harm my daughter or my granddaughter.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's Parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.
Well, I think we should do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out the new podcast, Very Scary People, from HLN. This season, which I assume might be just the first season of many, was about the Amityville Horror case, the murders of the DeFeo family. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Very Scary People?
I'm going to go mild thumbs up because there was nothing really like hugely wrong with this podcast. It was like I listened to it and it was easy to listen to. It was like comprehensive. It had all the right information. We had Donnie Wahlberg of the Wahlburgers. And I didn't know a lot about this particular murder. I knew about sort of the aftermath in the house, but that part was interesting. It's an interesting podcast, and if you don't know a lot about the case, you will be able to get up to speed.
Toby Ball, what do you think about Very Scary People?
I feel like they could have just edited out words and cut it down by like an entire episode. I mean, there's so much like redundancy and like feeling like that.
Why have words?
They have to name all the kids every once in a while. They have to run through the entire list of kids. Yeah, I thought it was sort of surprisingly poorly written. I couldn't connect with it at all. I mean, it's not the worst. And then the last episode, which is where they kind of tack on the whole Amityville Horror franchise stuff just seemed like it was tacked on, like it's just sort of amended to this other story that they're trying to tell. So, you know, I'm a thumbs down. I'm not like a horrible thumbs down, but it's kind of a mess, I thought.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm a slight thumbs up. Again, this podcast doesn't ever get really great or get really bad. This isn't going to be on my top 10 list, but for what it is, it's fine. It's a competently told story with not a lot of forced errors here. Donnie Wahlberg, he's either going to make or break the podcast. It's either going to be, yeah, Donnie's going to tell the story in a great way that I'm going to enjoy, or I'm just going to be too distracted because it's Donnie. But I think he does a decent job. The investigation part, they don't rely solely on a bunch of narration. They do cycle in different points of view with a lot of different tape, and I did appreciate they did probe a little bit into the whole Amityville Horror house and where that may have come from and how that sort of interconnected with the DeFeo's defense appeal. No spoilers there, but I thought that was kind of smart.
Spoilers. Thing happened like a million years ago.
Well, no, I thought that was, I don't want to say something that, give away part of episode 6. Anyway, it's fine. Donnie, if you're listening, give me a call. We'll grab a burger at Wahlburgers. And
he doesn't
I'll
eat
tell you,
that. He's in way too good of a shape. He does not eat that food. I guarantee. Well, maybe he does.
Jenny won't let him eat that.
All right, so here's where I am on it, okay? Music-wise, I have always been more of a fan of NSYNC than
Oh, for
Backstreet
fuck's
Boys.
sake. Are we really going there?
This is important.
All right.
Lately, though, learning what trash Justin Timberlake is, I have been like gravitating more toward New Kids on the Block, especially since Jonathan Knight has now this incredible show on HGTV called Farmhouse Fixer, which is entirely filmed in New England. By the way, the first episode was filmed in Hollis, New Hampshire. Great show. I recommend it highly. So I entered this podcast with some bias, okay? I'm enjoying Jonathan Knight's show on HGTV very much. And I grew up like 12 miles from where this whole thing happened. And the story of the Amityville case infused my entire childhood. So with those caveats, the listener needs to know that I liked this way more than I would have liked it otherwise, because this is probably way worse than I heard it. I just guarantee it. Like if I had heard this without those lenses, I probably would have been like, this is not great. But I really liked it. And it's probably because of those factors. I found Donnie Wahlberg to be charming. And I am just, it's like when there's an Amy Fisher podcast, I'm probably going to have the same reaction unless it's like factually inaccurate and awful, because like that's another case that I literally know everything about. So I'm sorry. I know this is not a great reflection of like my usual high standards and like pointed criticism, but I got to give this thing a thumbs up. Sorry.
All right.
Just going to do it. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the crime
of the week.
Of the week.
Oh. Is that the right one?
That is the worst New Kid on the Block song. It was so bad. In a measure of how truly delusional we have become. No, that's NSYNC.
The bye thing?
That's NSYNC.
No, I thought New Kids on the Block is Hanging Tough.
That's Hanging Tough,
Yeah.
yes. But Kevin just did the
What's the one with the puppets?
hands. That's NSYNC. Yeah.
Those guys hate each other, I bet.
Yeah.
What about
sorry.
Backstreet Boys?
Backstreet's back. All right. Back from where? We don't know.
I'm really praying that Spotify takes our episode down.
Now it's time again for my favorite part of this podcast, a little something I like to call the crime
of the week.
In a measure of how truly delusional we have become, besides me liking the stupid podcast we just reviewed, a new poll shows that 6% of Americans think they could beat a grizzly bear in hand-to-hand combat. YouGov polled Americans on which animals they thought they could defeat in an unarmed fight. 72% thought they could beat a rat, just higher than an attacking house cat or a wild goose. By the way, no one could fucking beat a wild goose, I guarantee it.
That's like 0% of the population.
What about the goose ganker?
I've been attacked by a goose. You cannot beat that shit. Less than a third believed they'd come out on top of fighting an eagle or a large dog. That's reasonable. But 8%, and we still think this is a high number, believe they could win if they squared off against a gorilla, an elephant, or a lion. What the fuck is the matter with you, any of you people?
Put 'em up. Put 'em up.
And maybe they've watched Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant too many times, but 6% of men and women polled think they could beat an up to 1,700-pound grizzly bear. It's our hope that these overly confident citizens don't head into the wilderness itching for a fight. Although the great many of respondents didn't think they'd do well matched up against a crocodile or king cobra, no one said they can take an owl because, they're murderous sons of bitches. So, panel, let's take the gloves off. Which of us crime writers do you think could beat a grizzly bear in one-on-one combat? Laura Bricker, what do you think?
Oh, boy. I'm going with Toby Ball. I mean, we've seen the guns when he comes here after his basketball games, and he's the tallest one of our, so I think that's what he's got going for him in this.
He could get
Toby
the bear
Ball.
in a headlock.
Yeah, you think my reach advantage against a grizzly bear might be the difference?
Well, you'd at least be like the same height, and you could be like, "Rawr."
There's only one answer to this question, and it's Laura. And I know she can't answer herself, so I'll be the first person to tell the truth.
I agree. Why do you think it's Laura Bricker, Toby?
I mean, do I have to list all the reasons? I mean, it's...
Nope.
I just think it's apparent.
She learned how to kill a bear in cat detective school.
Yes. And if she didn't kill him from all those tools in cat detective school, she might talk him to death. Right?
Oh, that's a good one, Rebecca. Wow, that's a good one.
Anyone who's ever walked down Exeter, like any street in Exeter with Laura Bricker knows.
No brown bears in Exeter. Just saying.
Wow, so 6% of people thought that they could, unarmed, come out on top against a grizzly bear?
8% believe they could win if they square off against a gorilla. Have you ever seen a fucking gorilla?
Yeah, gorillas are, there's no way.
An elephant? Or a lion, okay?
So I don't, even if an elephant was being docile, there's nothing you could really do to it to hurt it. And then once it got pissed off, it would stomp you.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. And by the way, 72% think they could beat a wild goose.
Yeah, that's not happening either.
They are mean.
They are mean and they are aggressive, and they actually can freaking peck your eyes out. They are so aggressive.
Yeah. But 68, 69% think that they'd beat a cat.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a high number, but there's still
31%.
A third of people are like, no, I couldn't take
a cat.
A cat.
No, the cat's got me. What do you think about a bobcat?
I'll take the L. That's fine.
I don't think a bobcat. I think that would be scary.
You do?
All right. Laura Bricker, folks want to reach out to you and say, I'm sorry that Rebecca said that you could talk a grizzly bear to death. I apologize on her behalf, and she's once again bullying you on the podcast. I'm going to leave a bad comment. How can they find Twitter to apologize to you on my behalf?
They can find me at Laura Bricker, and one of the things I often tell people, because it has been told to me many times, is that I could talk a starving dog off a meat truck. So I take it as a compliment, Rebecca.
It is true, and it's actually, to be honest, my absolute favorite thing about you. Toby Ball, folks want to reach out to you on Twitter and say, no, Toby, I believe it is you that could take a grizzly bear to fight. How can they find you on Twitter?
That would be so wrong, but they can find me at Toby Ball NH.
And Kevin Flynn, if folks want to reach out to you because they want to hear more of your Donnie Wahlberg impression, how can they find you on Twitter?
Yo, I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you can find me at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show on Twitter at Crime Writers On, and please join our amazing community in our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. I have admitted so many people this week, and so many of them, Kevin, have picked you as their favorite crime writer,
as they should.
FYI. We also have a regular old Facebook page. Just go there, hit join the group. That's how you will find our group. Answer a couple questions. We will let you in. Support the show at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You'll get the Crime Writers On After Show right now. Plus, you'll get Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcasts. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. Our line editor is the newly college graduated Olivia Burdett.
Yay, congratulations.
Yeah.
The executive producer of this fine program is Kevin P. Flynn. This show was recorded in the Yoga Loft above the Bodega in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement where we hold televised seances in a shameless attempt to get ratings during Sweeps Week. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Get out.
I told you my favorite all-time concert write-up thing was during when I worked in the clip room and we were reading 70 newspapers a day.
Mm-hmm.
The New Kids on the Block were doing a show. I can't remember where it was, but apparently during Hanging Tough, Donnie Wahlberg would jump off a riser and touch his toes in a split and then land on the stage. But they had flipped open a trap door, so he jumped up, touched his toes, and when he went for the landing, went right through and hurt himself.
Like Wile E. Coyote.
Poor Donnie.
Yeah.
Partners in Crime Media.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.